Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. I've fallen into a trap. The trap of overthinking presence, reality, existence. The whole point of being present is to be focused on your experience of reality. So your body, your breath, your surroundings, and not be in your head. Unfortunately, my fascination with it has me reading about it, watching it, thinking about it, talking about it, all of which are ways to try to translate this feeling into language. But the problem is, as Alan Watts says, the point cannot be explained in words. So thinking about presence doesn't make you more present, it actually takes you out of the present moment, obviously. As Wim Hof says, feeling is understanding. So you just have to feel present and not have to think about it. In other words, Alan Watts says that with meditation, we are going behind with names, numbers, beliefs, and ideas to get back to the naked experience of reality itself. I know I can do better than that. But anyway, I've always just interpreted my reality that way through thought. But as I'm learning right now, not everything can be conceptualized that way and just thought about. Some things can't be turned into words and thoughts, they can only be felt and experienced. And in fact, some would argue that reality itself can only be felt and experienced, not thought about. But here I am thinking about presence and how great presence is when I'm not actually present because I'm thinking about it. So obviously, if you can just be present without having to think about it, that's way better than thinking about presence all the time like I'm doing right now. I think that's why my thesis about Gary Vee being super spiritual without even realizing it is so accurate, which by the way, I made a video about that, so go ahead and check that out. But these spiritual gurus tend to think about and talk about presence all the time, which takes them out of the present moment. While the super present people like Gary Vee in my argument are just present without having to even think about it. It's kind of like a bad teacher. We've all had that teacher before. The one that just knows how to do everything but doesn't quite know how to explain it. I almost wish this was how I was, because knowing through thought and words and concepts and symbols, knowing so much about presence is kind of taking me out of the present moment. I kind of wish I was just naturally present and didn't even know what not being present was. But I guess the good thing is I've kind of identified the problem, and I guess the solution would just be to meditate more, be more mindful, connect more with the present moment. But that stuff is easier said and thought about than done. But it also makes me wonder if there's a way that I can teach all these things that I want to share with the world without explicitly having to explain them, perhaps simply by leading by example. In fact, many people are resistant to direct teaching and instead are more receptive to simply emanating behaviors of people that they like. Like, I don't know if it's just me or if when you finish watching a movie and you actually really kind of like the main character, sometimes you'll leave the movie and you'll kind of feel a little bit like the main character, you know, you kind of want to act like him a little bit. Or maybe I'm just weird. But it makes me wonder if I should really be trying so hard to be teaching all this stuff to people when really I could just be living it myself, and then that way I would teach people. But what got me thinking about this was Alan Watts' speech about the Bodhisattva doctrine, in which he talks about Zen art, where the subject matter is non-religious, but it still somehow teaches you something. Or as he says it, there's something about the way it is handled that just stops you. For example, the painting shows grass and trees and bamboo. That in and of itself is not religious, but it kind of points you towards more religious concepts. As Alan Watts says, I was being, of course, taught by those painters to see grass, but there was something about them that one could never pin down, and that was this thing that I will call the religion of no religion. And so he explains how you want to be a Buddha who can't be detected, and you want to leave behind the tracks of a bird in the sky, which is funny because birds don't leave tracks in the sky. So basically I've been thinking a lot today, and it kind of led me down the path of Alan Watts because he is deeply philosophical. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about today is kind of inspired by him. And by the way, the first way that I found out about Alan Watts was through a song that heavily sampled one of his speeches. The song is called Overthinker by Enzo. It's a future-based song, so it's kind of dubsteppy or whatever, but I like it. But anyway, the reason why I'm titling it Existential Crisis number 001 is because this is not the first time, well, okay, it's the first time I'm officially recording it and calling it that, but this is not the first time that I've felt like I'm in this position where the day before putting out a video, I just don't know what to talk about because that day just nothing naturally comes to me the way that it usually does, and then I get kind of stuck because I know that I have to put out a video, but I don't know what to do. And it gets me really, really in my head, as you can tell, and it puts me in these crazy, crazy thoughts, which honestly are kind of interesting. And I think there's something in them that you can relate to and get out of this. And so having this new series of existential crises is kind of nice, knowing that I have something to fall back on, where if there's a day where just nothing's coming to me, where I don't know what to make a video on, I'll start to get stressed and nervous and stuff, and that'll produce these kind of thoughts, which will get me in my feels and my existential crises, and then I'll just make a video about that. I know it's probably less than ideal, or maybe it's the best thing that's gonna happen to this channel, who knows? But I know for a fact that it will make me feel better about my YouTubing stuff, and I hope that it will help you too, because I think the stuff that I'm going through is at least somewhat relatable. I know I've always been one to overthink, so maybe I'm just crazy. But I think it's a point worth noting, a cautionary tale, if you will. So if you made it this far, I really, really appreciate you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about all this stuff, if you have an opinion on it, or if it's the first time that you're hearing it, then I'd like to hear about that too. But either way, I'm gonna wrap it up here, so I will see you in the next video. Peace.